This isn't the extreme poop soccer level. This is like your average player where they don't sacrifice their life to the Warframe gods in fashion frame. So this is for y'all that are just like, okay, what Warframe should I get? Getting into this tier list, I have my previous tier list right next to me where I could compare it to like my previous results. Otherwise, I have this tier list here that is a remake, since so many people disagree with my previous one and these videos seem to do well. Now, before you say, oh, you're just milking these videos, I got Grendel and I got Revenant, so my accuracy could be a little bit more there. So let's just jump straight into this. So first I have S tier, which everyone knows what S tier is. I have A+, which is almost S tier, but just lacking in a couple departments. I have A tier. This is useful except for 1 or 2 mission types. B+, B, useful for half missions. C is extreme niche warframes, like 1 or 2 missions. D is useful but fun warframes. F, you can already know what F means. And unknown are the warframes that I do not have. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the warframes that I do not have. I do not have Baruch. I do not have Harrow. Hildren. Do not have Cora because I keep on getting her chassis and not everything else. Don't have Lavos yet. Don't have Protea yet. As you can see, I have some of these warframes that are a little bit more of a pain to get. I don't think I'm going to end up grinding for Protea because I've never really been impressed by what she can do. So, and I don't have Zaku, which I really do want Zaku, but I've seen, if you guys see some of the videos out there, Zaku goes for hours on hours in these endurance runs, and it's just insane what he can do. So let's just go straight in. First we have Ashe. Previously, I believe I rated Ashe maybe A or S tier. So Ashe really isn't the best for defense missions. That is pretty much a lacking department there. And I mean, there's really no defensive capabilities unless you do a mass killing with your 4th ability, but you will burn through energy if you're really doing high damage. I would have to either go A or A+ tier. I'd probably go A tier. Probably just go flat A tier. Atlas. So what he can do essentially is he could become a loot frame and a tank frame and maybe a DPS frame just because of his augment Orgaze and his other augment Rubble, where it doesn't take energy when he does his punch. But I really don't see him too useful in solo defense missions. Like we're talking in perspective of a solo mission, like on their own, not with other warframes. I think Atlas just lacks in, let's say, defense missions, the Orb Mother fights. Otherwise, I don't really see anything wrong with running him, because captures, exterminates, you could just speedrun. None of those are really a problem. So I'll put Atlas A tier, since he can self-heal, he can do tons of damage with his first ability, and you could be a loot frame if you're trying to farm certain parts. Banshee, not that great except for the fact that I believe your first ability can have a augment mod where you do a armor reduction. I believe it's honestly, I think it's better than Ashe's because it's a wave and you can target more enemies with it. Ashe's is just guaranteed accuracy on it. So did you take that into consideration that Banshee has a very similar mod? I don't think Banshee's as useful as Ashe because, okay, a 4th ability you can use for defense missions. That's pretty much it. Your scan ability where it reveals weak spots on targets. It's really great on paper, but in regular missions, you're just spamming around with my melee weapon, and it's not like it's going to guarantee hit every time. So I'd be willing to put Banshee. I think Banshee C for her extreme niche of hitting the 2 billion damage. Chroma, I really don't think Chroma's that great, except for his ability where he can just get the damage boost, which you use with Eidolon and hunting and Profit Taker hunting. 4th ability, it takes too much damn energy to be useful. Otherwise, there's nothing really too crazy about him. Yes, he can tank, but honestly, I really don't think. I only see Chroma practically ran pretty much every time for a Eidolon hunt. Y'all went crazy and got me 170 subs. This is just absolutely insane. Did not expect this. Very happy. It's just for y'all, for the 170 subscribers. I'm gonna bang this drum very loudly and it's gonna ruin this video. I feel like I'm just gonna rip this thing. Aim it at the microphone. Maybe a little bit louder. I might have to mute this or edit this. It's like shaking everything in my house. But thank you so much for 170 subs. I was gonna buy $200 worth of Pokemon cards, but then decided not to because that's not really like financially stable or reasonable or responsible. Ember, I just finished leveling up my classic Ember because I only had it like leveled up partially for some reason. So I got the master rank for that. Ember is a solid warframe. And the targeting capability and the damage capability is pretty insane. Ember, so energy consumption wise, uses quite a bit of energy, but has defensive capabilities and can armor strip if played correctly. And our fourth ability can just do tons of damage. I might have to do an S tier for Ember. I think I will, because I don't see a weak spot necessarily. We're gonna go A plus, because in terms of Profit Taker, and I think Profit Taker is an option of how Ember isn't really the most useful. Maybe for her armor and damage reduction with her flame shield ability, whatever you want to call that. That's just a kind of a level down. Like S tier, you got to be able to pop them anytime, even in Profit Taker. I know Profit Taker is an extreme niche. I'm going to make it a little bit more... Maybe I shouldn't even take... Because Profit Taker is an extreme definite example. Because with Profit Taker nowadays, it's really important to bring in Necromech, which I need to get, because those things will do millions of damage. So in terms of your Warframe, it doesn't seem to be that necessary. So Ember really doesn't have any support abilities. You do have to be careful of... Ember is kind of floating. She may be just moved into S tier. Equinox... lots of versatility, I'm gonna be honest. Does have nuking ability, can support. There's just a lot of roles that you can fill in with Equinox. And I'm looking at my previous tier list, and where do I have Equinox? More than likely, I think I have her A tier, which I could see doing the same thing again, realistically. Because, I mean, her nuke ability with her, I think it's Men in May, maybe. That might be the ability. I think I will put Equinox A, because I don't really bring her to every mission. But I definitely see a case for these two being moved to S tier. Excalibur, I'm going to do quickly just... boom, A plus tier, just because of the fact that you can get Excalibur and speedrun pretty much completely all of Warframe just with your fourth ability. It really just carries you through everything. Maybe, okay, no, that's a little too high. I'm gonna do Excalibur just A tier, not A plus, because for these are like two very niche flaws. That's just a difficult decision. Profit Taker can just be the sweetness. Honestly, I'll move Ash up one, and I'll move... Just Excalibur doesn't have very many defensive capabilities. But, I mean, Excalibur, if we take that into consideration, which we're not necessarily doing today. Alright, Frost. Frost is a interesting option, because your bubble is very nice as a defensive capability, and your Ice Wave is kind of nice. But your first ability and your fourth ability can be very useful. So 3 out of 4 abilities are useful. So I believe Frost should be above C tier at least. Maybe A tier. Just because your crowd control is pretty nice. The Ice Wave, you have the augment where you can leave ice behind. You can run Frost for interceptions, defense missions, mobile defense missions, exterminations, anything like that. You know, I think we could put Frost A tier as it's a solid frame. Yeah, I think I'll put Frost A tier, because I definitely think Excalibur. I think these 4 frames are just much better. Equinox is moving dodgy right now. I'm gonna be honest, because she can be a great focus farm. She has the sleep abilities, damage. It's just insane. All right, Gara. Don't tell me otherwise, because your damage numbers will be through the roof when you cycle with your fourth ability to get your passive damage just by walking around super high. You have defensive capabilities, and your damage pretty much just outdoes everything. Garuda, I've seen a couple videos saying that they can get Garuda as a nuke frame. I'm gonna take this out of consideration just for general players, because I haven't seen enough of these videos, and I haven't really seen a video on it. But from my experience with Garuda's a fun Warframe, and honestly, I think Garuda's more useful than Chroma and Banshee, which a lot of people are going to disagree with. But your healing well is kind of nice for teammates. You have the front shield, and your fourth ability can do quite a bit of slash damage to enemies, and you can return energy to yourself. You're pretty independent as a Warframe. I'll put Garuda B plus. Gauss, fantastic Warframe. I'm not sure about putting in... You know what? I'm putting Gauss S tier because of your ultimate ability. You can just do insane numbers with that. You could use I believe it's either your third or your second ability. One of them is a defensive move where you activate it, and it takes energy and reduces damage to your Warframe, and another one is just as a radial attack of like a fire or freeze damage. It's just insane what you could do. And you know what? I'm putting Gauss at A+, because I don't think Gauss could be on the same level as like Gara. I'm gonna bring Equinox down 1. We'll do S as OP. We'll make A. I think that's a little bit more fair. So who knows? We may have to bump down these frames just a little bit more. I'm gonna bump them down a little bit more, because Ash, your big weakness is defense missions. Yeah, you can do the amount of damage, but unless you're a poop soccer, then it's, you know, not the vibe. Grendel, I got Grendel. He's fun to play, but there is no way in hell he's useful, because the amount of energy you use just to eat the enemies, and for it to scale to a reasonable amount with your 4th ability, or maybe your 2nd ability where you can buff teammates, he's fun, but he's just not useful. I think it's a unique playstyle compared to other Warframes, to the point where, yeah, it's fun, it's something new, which you don't get a lot with quite a few frames. Hydroid, yep. I don't know why people like Hydroid so much for these loot missions, because what happens a lot of the time is an enemy glitches into the wall or something like that, and you don't even get the loot drop from them. Or it's just Hydroid is used for loot. That is pretty much all I see happen with your Pilfering Swarm mod. You know what's even better than Hydroid is running a Cora. Like, if you run a Cora and a Nekros, and you're good to go. You really don't need more than that, unless you're really trying to go crazy. But before I even would draft Hydroid, I would do Cora, Nekros, a DPS frame like Octavia or Saren or Gara, just to kill everything. I just don't see Hydroid in my right away draft. Inaros, so yes, I've put Inaros S tier as a joke, because, one thing, Inaros is one of my first frames. One of the more fun frames to use for me. I just like tanking everything and not having to do anything. So in Inaros, you can do finisher damages with your 1, and then for your 4th ability, you're just gonna tank, and I believe your 2nd ability, you can pretty much eat enemies and just regain health. Now, you're not gonna be able to use this much in like a defense mission or a endurance run, because eventually you'll just get melted, because you don't have the shield gating privilege or pretty much a shield gaining advantage. So to realistically put Inaros somewhere, I'd be willing to put Inaros B tier along with Garuda. Like I said, I don't know the nuking capabilities of Garuda, but I do believe Inaros, you could just whap him above these 4 frames. Chroma, I think to get Chroma up, I think he would need his 4 to be way different, or have it move around independently like Wukong's Spectre, or whatever you want to call it, because right now it just spins around and does damage. It also does like a credit boost drop, but if it was mobile and used less energy, 100% Chroma might even be C or B tier. And his first ability is just kind of whack. If it was like a radial attack or had a little bit more range, I'd be willing to put it Chroma like B or B plus tier. But really, you only have 2 useful abilities there. Is your 2nd one, your 3rd. Ivara, excellent for spy missions, because the tripwire line, or the crossing line, whatever you want to call it, your dash wire, you have your sleep arrow. I haven't really used the sound arrow that much. Those abilities are very nice. You can go invisible, loot frame, or it's also a loot frame. If you ever want to get the Shidu parts, you can run Ivara just to steal from the sentients. And your 4th ability, your Artemis bow, it's kind of whack, I'm going to be honest. I definitely think Ivara is a solid frame to run. I have ranked her previously as, I believe, Ivara. I ranked her as an A tier. I'd be willing to put Ivara as A tier again. I wouldn't do always useful. You know, if you're doing it like endurance runs or spy missions, Ivara is a great choice. All right, Limbo. Thermofractures, kind of nice, except for the fact that your bubbles always get popped, but you get that energy return and that safety, but it's very irritating for other players to run with. I have ranked Inaros previously as an A tier frame, which seems a little bit high, I'm going to be honest, but the energy return, your 4th ability, and your 2nd ability, because realistically, your 1st ability and your 3rd ability, they just aren't really useful, but the usefulness of your 4th and your 2, just freezing everything in time, is extremely useful. I think if Limbo's 1st and 3rd ability were more useful, it would go back in A tier, but I think Now I'm gonna do B tier. Exterminations, survivals. I don't think Limbo is the most practical. So I think there's just too many weaknesses there and not enough useful abilities. All right, Loki. So you have pretty much the longest time to go invisible, to do spy missions. I'm gonna be on. I don't know enough of Loki. I don't have Loki Prime just because it's ridiculously expensive, but just the usefulness of Loki. Spy missions, that's pretty much the staple. Otherwise, I don't see him in endurance runs or anything crazy like that. So I just don't think I have enough data to come to the conclusion of where he should really go. I think Loki would be B and above. I don't think he'd be anywhere near C tier or F tier, anything like that. Mag, excellent Warframe with the shield gating and the shield regen. The amount of damage you could do with your magnetize, it's insane. I'll put Mag A+. We're putting Mag A tier. Your first ability, not very useful. The rest are pretty useful. Now, the case could be made for Excalibur that your first ability is useless. We'll bring Excalibur down because just his fourth ability really is that insane. Oh, man. I'm feeling generous. We're gonna put Excalibur A+. If his first ability could be a little bit more useful, he'd definitely be there. And I'll put Mag A+. Why not? The amount of shields that you can regain, your fourth ability can do a significant amount of damage. Your magnetize can attract enemies to a zone, making them just absorb pretty much everything of damage for your team. I would recommend getting Mag. But don't choose her as a starter Warframe because she's probably the easiest Warframe to get because the Sergeant's the easiest boss fight right now until they rework him, but he's just super easy to fight. Mesa is a excellent Warframe except for the fact that when you're doing your most OP ability, your fourth ability, you cannot move, and even with your damage reduction, you could still get melted. So I'm going to put Mesa at an A+, just because there's just such a weakness when you use your fourth ability just to die instantly. With these frames, you just do too much damage just to be weakened by anything. Mirage. Mirage is a fantastic Warframe for your explosive legerdemain augment, but you do need an augment to really make Mirage go super far for certain missions. But your damage buff and your Hall of Mirrors combined, you can do insane numbers. Now, there is a certain cap where your explosive legerdemain becomes kind of just ineffective to a point, kind of. But I mean, it's a continuous decline. Unlike with Gara, you just keep scaling up. So I'm gonna put Mirage as an A+, just because for practical Warframe players, I highly recommend picking up Mirage Prime. Nekros. I'm gonna say the King of Loot. You don't need an augment to get loot buffs. You don't need an augment for Ivara, but for a lot of other Warframes, you need an augment for those loot buffs. He can tank, he has the loots, and you could do an instant res with one of the augments. Now, I don't think he is great for doing DPS. He's definitely not there for that. He's an excellent frame. But okay, his Terrify and his Soul Punch. So his Soul Punch outside of the augment of instant res really isn't that useful unless you just want a few more shadows. I just don't see it. So I'm going to put him B because you can't really use him on. So I'm going to keep Nekros on B tier. Alright, Nezha. I have Nezha Prime. Pretty fun Warframe to use. Generally quite useful, I'll be honest. But, so your first ability, where you just run around and leave fire on the ground, it's kind of just a thing just to stun enemies maybe, just get that fire's time. But your fourth ability, your Warden Halo, those are the two abilities that you're really going to want. So do I think Nezha deserves... I think Nezha deserves B tier, I'll be honest. The ring, you could teleport where you throw it, sure. But is that really useful in every mission? Pretty much just for parkours or spy missions. But that's just she has some extremely niche abilities. So I'm just going to put Nezha B tier. B+ tier though. More useful than Garuda or Inaros. Alright, what do we have? Nidus. Nidus is fantastic. With the augment where you get no cap on the damage or the amount of spores that you can have, or you get an increased cap of 300 spores, 300 mutations. It's just insane what you can do. You're pretty much immortal. You do have the 15-second cooldown on the instant revive. So you have your first ability, which is how you build the stacks. Your second ability is how you bring in the enemies. Third is how you can increase damage or reduce damage to yourself. And your fourth is a healing area that can get you more stacks with your maggots. Nova, I just don't see. All right, I'm putting Nova C+, because if you want to slow enemies down, there's one of your options. And if you just want to teleport across the map, you don't really see much of a high damage Nova in the culture with your when you throw the Nova Star out, and it can do definitely a lot of damage. But if that ability would be able to do more damage or just went instantly, the way it works is kind of goofy, I'm going to be honest. How you have to shoot it for it to do more damage. Maybe, it absorbs damage for a certain amount of time and shoots it back out. Yeah, it just needs a little bit more juice there. You can't reduce your damage to yourself with the first ability, but I think it's really irritating how it just depletes and they just go to damage other enemies. I think just some of her abilities just aren't really there to make it mostly useful for pretty much everything else. I think I will have to lower Inaros. I hate to do it, but I think it has to be done. He has a lot of health. He could self-regen, all that. But some of his abilities and some aspects of his abilities aren't super useful. I think Nyx... So I put Nyx... Where did I put Nyx? In the previous video, I put Nyx C tier, which I think is hella bogus. So I found out... I didn't realize this, but you could do a full armor strip with your first ability if you just put, like, Intensify on. Because that gets you to that threshold of, removing shield and armor from, like, I think it's 5 or 6 enemies. And that's just insane. That's not just an armor reduction. That's just removing it altogether. And your fourth ability, if you do a melee combo sort of thing, you can go insane with that. The Chaos ability is very nice just to reduce the damage coming at yourself so they can just damage each other. And then you have your Mind Hack. I mean, that's kind of useful if you want to hack like an Ancient Healer or a Nox. But you know what? I'm putting Nyx Beats here. I'll back that. B+. Screw it. We're putting Nyx B+. Oberon pretty much fills in the slots for any Tridolon hunt. Can cancel status effects, heal, do damage over an area. His passive is kind of useless. Just gives a little bit of a buff to pets. Where did I put Oberon previously? I put Oberon in A tier. I'd be willing to put Oberon either A or A+. I'm feeling generous. A+. Octavia. There's no argument here. I was able to solo farm for Grendel with Octavia. There's nothing wrong with running Octavia. That's just the fact. The amount of damage and your damage scales, so it really doesn't matter. There's no real threshold to your damage. Revenant. I've recently got Revenant. I think, artistically speaking, he's a really cool frame to look at. I really don't like the little dongle on his head, how long that is, but, that's just how it is. But I don't really see him useful to a point where he's always used. His fourth ability is kind of cool. Just do that radial damage. The Thrall is just kind of goofy. It's a goofy system. The casting time, because you pretty much need natural talent to make it like not irritating to be like to every enemy for sitting there for 3 seconds and you're just getting absolutely destroyed. The Reeve ability is quite nice for getting health back. And the ability where it concusses enemies where you can enthrall them for free. I think it should just auto-enthrall them for no cost of energy. I think that would make a lot more sense. I think that would put him as a more useful frame in this A to B tier area. Rhino is a very nice warframe. Excellent for the index. 100% go-to for the index. Armor ability and your crowd control and your damage buff. You're like a supportive tank. That's what you pretty much are. I'd put Rhino A+. Now, the only department where you're lacking is like a damaging ability. I'll put Rhino A. Because if you had like an actual damaging ability where you just wipe enemies out, because the crowd control for his fourth ability, that's fine. The damage buff, that's fine. If his first ability was a little bit more useful, I would be able to put him A+. Now, Gauss has a similar first ability, not exactly the same, but somewhat similar as you could claim. You charge forward, you do damage. But Gauss, it allows you to charge your passive, which is just absolutely insane numbers. Saren, I just don't see a reason why not. Titania, I'd say above C tier. Now, in terms of usefulness, the buffs that you give, kind of nice, not gonna lie. Your fourth ability pretty much makes you super hard to hit, and your weapons are quite strong. I'd be willing to put Titania either B or B+. I'm gonna put Titania B+. That's how it is. Trinity's kind of a goofy warframe because you're truly a supportive frame, and you have one tanking ability where some of the damage that you put on yourself gets reflected to nearby enemies that you're connected to. Then you get your fourth ability, which buffs your allies, health, shields, that sort of stuff. Your first ability, just healing well. Honestly, Garuda's healing well might be more of a wave. And then you have your energy well, which pretty much makes Trinity super useful. I'm going to be honest, I could see the point of C, but I can't see anything above, just because the support frames really aren't that fun to play. And there's really, I don't see a case of putting her in A tier, because there's not insane damage numbers. You can't really be independent, because you're going to have to rely on everything in your kit. For damage, you're not going to be able to do really any ability damage. I just don't see a case for putting Trinity in A tier. Maybe B+, but I think a lot of these Warframes are better than Trinity. Valkyr, kind of ass, I'm not going to lie. Like, cool, you could tank with your armor, but the infinite Warcry ability and the melee speed boost, that's kind of cool for endurance runs, for survival missions, but defense missions, not the wave. Honestly, C+. A lot of people are going to disagree, but you know what? That's what it is. Valbon, the CC is there. After the rework, I think Valbon's a little bit more useful, but it's been so long since I've used Valbon. I don't have Valbon Prime. I know, insane. We'll put Valbon in another unknown, because the glory days of the CC being super OP for survival runs on like Mott. All right, Volt, A+. The crowd control of your fourth ability, really nice. The shield, you can go riot setup. You can do the speed boost. Your first ability is kind of useless. So your first ability is pretty much where it is now. Now with the shield gating and your fourth ability, you can regenerate shield super fast and tank a little bit more. But there's a certain threshold where you have to reach to be S tier. Like I said before, Embers could be movable, but Volt definitely a go-to frame. 100% recommend getting. Wisp, super cool frame. If you're running excavation missions, I highly recommend bringing Wisp, as she can increase the health of the drills and help I believe she can regen health on the drills. But otherwise, with your wells, that kind of carries you, because your first ability where you charge forward and your beam, those really aren't very efficient for Warframe. I'll put Wisp A tier. I don't think it deserves A+, but A tier definitely. I don't see anything below. Wukong, Iron Staff is kind of cool, kind of unique with the combos that you can get on it. Your Celestial Twin, very nice, is much more useful than Chroma's fourth ability. Cloud Walker, regen health, go invisible, zoom around for spy missions, pretty useful. And I mean, the armor buff is kind of nice. I'm floating between A and B+. I don't know, because there's no really damage scaling abilities. You know what? I'm gonna put Wukong A, just because there's no damage scaling there. It's kind of like, could you really? I could see an argument for A+. I could see an argument for B. For being generous and for Wukong's rework, I think A is definitely a solid rate. Zephyr, this is pre-rework, so this is February 19th, 2021. This is before the rework, and Zephyr is still ass. Goddamn, Zephyr is awful. You need an augment for your fourth ability to put a status effect on your enemies. Oh wow, a status effect. It really doesn't do anything fancy. Because if you don't have an augment, it just throws enemies around. It's super irritating. Your first ability where you just fly forward, useless. Literally useless. If you want a speedrun, bring Nova. Your only moderately useful ability is the wind shield, where it just deflects everything. But one of your abilities is made to buff one of your other abilities, which is kind of just stupid. I'm gonna be honest, it's just kind of useless. You can knock enemies down. Ooh, wow, you can knock them down. But I could just go in ball form with Grendel and just spam a spacebar and knock everything down and just have a little more fun, because you're just a Swedish meatball from IKEA that somehow escaped. But Zephyr is just ass. And your passive, you need a goddamn augment to turn off your passive. Like, they don't give you like an on and off button for that. It's the most annoying thing ever. The fact that you get to slow down, you just go, so irritating. So stupid. Like, you Zephyr mains out there that want to argue with me, the point where you just need a status effect, and you need to shoot the tornadoes with a gun with that status effect to be able to get the status effect on there. Why can't you just, choose, I don't know, cycle through an ability status for, I don't know, maybe your first in abilities and all the other ones, like they did for Chroma's first ability, instead of making it just the appearance color. That kind of helped them out a little bit, but it'd get Zephyr out of D tier, or out of F tier, but just not fun. Just not fun. F tier. I have Zephyr Prime with a reactor catalyst, whatever the hell you want to call it. R. I have the augment where she gets those mini tornadoes. No, just awful. I just spent like a minute shitting on Zephyr, but I'll back it. It's fine. So just to go over the S tier, we have Ember, Gara, Nidus, Octavia, and Saren. There's movement for Ember. These 4 Warframes, they're not moving. I don't care who you are. They're not moving. That's just a fact. Otherwise, I'd faithfully back up the rest of these. There's some stragglers in there where you can put like in between certain areas, but I think this tier list can represent the general public of Warframe, not the extreme poop sockers that do 6,000 hour survival runs, whatever the hell they do. And just, honestly, if you really want to enjoy Warframe, I'd recommend any frames. B plus and above. I would recommend Revenant, Gara. I wouldn't really recommend Trinity, because Trinity's not fun to play. Just a support frame, but just good at being a support. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with getting frames being above except for Trinity. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Approaching 200 subscribers, which is just insane. Thank you so much for 100 subscribers. I'm surprised we even got that, and then we just blew up after that. I'll give tribute to the Warframe platinum farming video that popped off for zero reason. I don't know why people listen to me. I played this game for a while, know how to get platinum, but I mean, you could just buy platinum if you really want to, if you got the bags for that. But if you don't got the bags for that, I highly recommend watching that video, as it just gets you some cheaper ways of getting platinum, just all the different ways you can. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I just had a voice crack. Please subscribe. Leave a like on the video. Comment, if you disagree with something, because I got plenty of those saying, "Oh, this tier list is so false. It's so cringe."